Hollywood has always been a masterpiece of engineering, a brilliant factory built to manufacture the golden illusion of absolute perfection. For decades, the global audience has been fed a strict diet of hypermasculine, picture-perfect family men dominating the silver screen. We worshipped their unshakable confidence and celebrated their triumphs under the forgiving spotlight. But what happens when the theater lights fade, the cameras shut down, and the carefully curated public image collides with a dark, suffocating reality? Behind the heavy velvet curtains of fame lies a labyrinth of earth-shattering secrets, toxic romances, and scandalous betrayals that the industry desperately tried to bury. Today, we are tearing down the facade. We are stripping away the makeup and stepping directly into the shadows to dissect the double lives of 17 iconic black figures whose private entanglements with multiple men exposed the raw agony beneath the glamour. Prepare yourselves. This is not the sanitized history Hollywood wants you to remember. This is the chilling truth you were never supposed to find. Billy Porter. Moda, the forensic. Look closely at the infamous velvet tuxedo gown draped over the broad shoulders of a black man at the 2019 Oscars. A garment that stood as a definitive monument of fearless individuality, shattering Hollywood's traditional ideas of masculinity. That fabric was a beautiful armor, but if you look closer at the raw stitchings underneath, you will find the hidden bloodstains of a man slowly ripping apart at the seams. Beneath the dazzling stage lights, Billy Porter was waging a desperate war against a silent predator that had been tracking him since his deeply religious childhood, treated his identity as a permanent source of shame. When his glamorous marriage to Adam Smith shattered in 2020, the forgiving spotlight instantly vanished, throwing him headfirst into a toxic spiral of depression. The public saw an icon, but the wealthy gay nightclubs of Miami and New York saw a broken soul drowning his trauma in liquor, drugs, and fleeting, casual relationships with dozens of aspiring actors and dancers. In late 2021, the reckoning arrived not with applause, but with the cold, sterile beep of a hospital monitor. The diagnosis was an absolute death sentence to his pride. HIV mixed with type 2 diabetes, a double blow that left him gasping for air on a lonely medical bed. It took the agonizing erosion of his health and the patient, anchoring love of Eric Anderson to finally pull him out of the destructive mud, proving that fame's crushing pressure creates an unfillable void that no amount of public adulation can ever hope to cure. The deafening applause of thousands of fans can easily drown out the soft, rhythmic ticking of a countdown clock, hiding the reality that the higher an icon ascends, the colder the air becomes when the foundation begins to crack. Colman Domingo. Mode B, the reverse tragedy. The dazzling international red carpets of 2024 saw a historic milestone. An Academy Award nomination for a masterclass performance. A triumphant powerhouse standing at the absolute peak of global cinematic respect. Yet, if you rewind the tape of destiny by 3 decades, the view becomes chillingly dark, buried beneath the invisible walls of an industry that weaponized racial prejudices against queer black men. Long before he was an icon, Colman Domingo was a man wandering through a labyrinth of self-denial, forced to parade famous models and actresses under the forgiving spotlight to construct a picture-perfect illusion of traditional masculinity. But when night fell, the mask suffocatingly dissolved. He retreated to a private bar he purchased in New York, a hidden sanctuary that quickly transformed into a volatile vortex of lust, excessive nightlife, and fleeting physical encounters with hundreds of anonymous men searching for an escape from their own loneliness. He was a man drowning in a sea of empty physical pleasures, sacrificing bits of his soul to maintain a double life until a chance encounter with a man named Raul in 2005 rewrote his tragic script. Raul did not fall in love with the Hollywood facade. He saved the fragile human being hidden beneath it, leading to their quiet marriage in 2014 and pulling Colman out of the crushing pressure of the industry's temptations. Fame often demands that a man completely destroy his true identity before giving him permission to conquer the world. The heavy, metallic door of a secret sanctuary swings shut to lock out the judgment of the public, yet it simultaneously locks in the echoing footsteps of a lone wanderer heading straight toward a marketplace where identity is traded for survival. Titus Burgess. Mode C, the immersive witness. I remember standing in the suffocating dampness of a subterranean Manhattan club around 4 a.m., watching Titus Burgess slip through a crowd of flashing neon lights and heavy bass lines. To the world, he was the rising powerhouse with an operatic voice that could shatter glass. But in those dark corners, he looked like a man desperately hunting for an escape. He was deep in preparation for a breakthrough role, thorough-deep in the method acting process, but what started as an actor's clinical research into private gay bars quickly transformed into a toxic 2-year descent into raw agony. I watched him leave with a different face every single weekend, spiraling into a chaotic routine of brief, emotional encounters where he rarely spent time with the same man more than twice. You could see the unfillable void in his eyes when the morning sun hit the cold pavement, sitting alone in the back of a yellow cab, completely worn down by the social media illusion of a glamorous New York life while dealing with the chilling reality of an empty bed. Through those silent, anonymous confessions of rejected black gay men he met in the dark, men cast out by their families and broken by systemic prejudice, Titus didn't just find a character, he found his calling. He eventually used that collective pain to forge a magnificent public coming-out story, but the ghosts of those lonely, nameless nights still echo in the lower register of his most beautiful songs. The music in the lounge dies down, leaving nothing but the cold clinking of glasses on a bar counter, a hollow sound that perfectly mirrors the sudden evaporation of a fortune built on compromised flesh. Jeremy Pope, Mode D, The Systemic Critique. Look behind the iron gates of Hollywood, a predatory machine designed to consume black skin and spit out calculated profit, and you will find the shattered innocence of Jeremy Pope. Long before he was a celebrated powerhouse receiving prestigious award nominations, he was merely a vulnerable pawn entering a system weaponized by cold, white executives who held the absolute power of life and death over a young actor's career. To those monstrous gatekeepers, a queer black man was never a true artist. He was an exotic commodity, a piece of entertainment meant for private pleasure inside closed hotel rooms. When the casting doors repeatedly slammed shut due to brutal racial prejudices, Jeremy quickly realized a horrifying truth. Raw talent meant absolutely nothing without utter, physical submission. To secure the very first role of his career, he was forced to cross a humiliating, agonizing boundary, surrendering his body to a powerful director in an act of pure, desperate survival. It was a systematic blade slicing away his dignity piece by piece. His 2010 autobiography, The Harsh Realities of Being Jeremy Pope, pulled back the velvet curtain, exposing how he had to repeatedly give up his physical form to record executives and producers just to get his music released. The industry gave him trophies, but it left an unfillable void in his soul, a bitter realization that his success was built entirely on a foundation of sexual coercion. He eventually forged those deep scars into raw, haunting performances, but the applause of the public will never fully wash away the memory of the day he had to kneel in the dark just to stand tall in the light. The glamorous contract is signed with a golden pen, yet the ink that binds the deal is harvested from the invisible wounds of a soul forced to trade its reflection for a fleeting moment on a pedestal. Jussie Smollett, Mode E, The Paradox of Peaks. In early 2019, Jussie Smollett was basking in the absolute zenith of his career, a beloved breakout star on the blockbuster television series Empire, and an influential advocate standing proud at the intersection of black and queer representation. He was a cultural icon seemingly untouched by adversity, yet within a matter of days, that rhapsodic glory collided hedonism with a monstrous, self-inflicted catastrophe. Seeking to violently accelerate his career by manipulating the collective trauma of a nation, Jussie orchestrated an elaborate hoax, falsely claiming he was the victim of a brutal, racist, and homophobic street attack. The sudden drop was instantaneous and merciless. When Chicago police unmasked the entire event as a fraudulent scheme involving 2 paid accomplices, his picture-perfect illusion shattered into a million unfixable pieces. He was transformed overnight into a public disgrace, a despised outcast stripped of his freedom and thrust behind the freezing concrete walls of a correctional facility. Inside that strict hierarchy, his past fame offered no protective shield. Instead, it marked him as defenseless prey for violent and volatile inmates who viewed the torment of a fallen celebrity as a prime source of entertainment and dominance. In the suffocating isolation of his cell, he was subjected to systematic sexual coercion, forced into humiliating acts of physical submission to survive the unrelenting malice of hardened criminals. When guards finally discovered his completely lifeless form inside the cell, the medical examiners uncovered a horror that left the nation utterly paralyzed with shock. The autopsy report detailed a scene of absolute, raw agony. Nearly 400 milliliters of semen was discovered inside his abdomen, alongside severe rectal lacerations, deep internal hemorrhaging, and catastrophic bruising consistent with a relentless, medieval onslaught of physical torture. Jussie sought to ride the waves of simulated victimhood to secure an untouchable Hollywood legacy, but instead, he was utterly consumed by a terrifying reality that extracted the ultimate, fatal price for a single, deceptive choice. The final report is slid into a cold steel filing cabinet, a definitive metallic click that echoes through an empty room where a pristine mirror has been permanently replaced by a shattered reflection. Lee Daniels, Mode F, the inanimate observer. If the lenses of the heavy Panavision cameras on the set of Precious could speak, they would describe a director who was a master architect of raw human tragedy, yet completely blind to the slow destruction of his own identity. For 2 decades, a quiet, gold-trimmed director's chair sat in his private residence, representing the stable, elegant foundation of his long marriage to casting scout Billy Hopkins as they raised 2 adopted children together in a picture-perfect family. But when that chair was abruptly pushed away and the relationship collapsed, the camera lenses witnessed an earth-shattering secret unfold in the dark. To escape the agonizing memories of the only man he had ever truly loved, Lee publicly declared his fluid identity and threw himself into a chaotic double life, treating his own body as an open wound. By day, the cameras saw a devoted father. By night, they watched him submerge his soul into wild, anonymous group parties thick with the smell of heavy alcohol and hollow physical encounters. He was a powerhouse desperately chasing temporary sensations to fill an unfillable void, only to suffer from deep self-disgust when the morning light pierced the blinds. Every sleepless night of excess, every moment of crushing loneliness, and every ounce of humiliation was meticulously scraped from his real life and fed directly into the scripts of empire. Hollywood rewarded his self-inflicted agony with immense power and shiny awards, but the price he paid was permanent isolation, trapped forever between the pure love for his children and a dark, downward spiral with no escape. The bright studio spotlight snaps off with a heavy, mechanical thud, plunging the stage into total darkness and stripping away the illusion of control from a man who spent his life directing everyone but himself. RuPaul. Mode G, the psychological ghost. Inside the claustrophobic dressing rooms of the early 90s, before the world ever knelt before the global phenomenon of Drag Race, a thin black man stood staring into a mirror, battling a silent predator born of absolute societal rejection. Long before he was revered as the untouchable mother of drag queens, RuPaul's mind was an intricate labyrinth of paranoia and calculated survival strategies. To protect his fragile, burgeoning opportunities from the systemic blade of conservative media, he actively manufactured a protective illusion, feeding the tabloid stories of glamorous dates with women to project a safe, heterosexual image. But this picture-perfect deception was a heavy mental prison. In the damp shadows of underground nightclubs, his psyche fractured under fame's crushing pressure, convincing him that raw talent would never be enough to break through the invisible walls of an unforgiving industry. He entered a dangerous gray area of personal compromise, transforming his own physical form into a cold currency to trade with powerful producers, singers, and actors for a ticket out of crushing obscurity. His shocking 2015 BBC interview pulled back the heavy curtain, exposing a dark past where he surrendered his dignity to elite industry figures, some treating him as a source of cheap, physical pleasure, while others used him to release their own deeply buried, scandalous secrets. Though he eventually found an emotional anchor in his 2017 marriage to painter Georges Labar, the psychological scars of those transactional years remain permanently etched behind his dazzling television smile, a haunting reminder that to become an immortal icon, he first had to let his original self slowly bleed out in the dark. The meticulous layers of foundation are wiped away with a rough towel, leaving behind a bare, weathered face that no longer recognizes the grand caricature it created for the amusement of a fickle crowd. André de Shields. Mode H, the statistical descent. On a cold medical chart in the mid-1980s, the human cost of a dazzling career was reduced to terrifying, unyielding numbers. André de Shields was an unparalleled powerhouse of the theater, a Tony-winning actor, director, and choreographer who seemed to master every artistic medium he touched. Yet, behind the roaring ovations lay a dark arithmetic of physical excess. In his own autobiography, André made the staggering statistical claim that he had engaged in intimate, anonymous group encounters with nearly 25% of the entire male population of Baltimore. He viewed these massive, chaotic couplings, frequently involving 5, 7, or far more men simultaneously in dimly lit rooms, as a legitimate source of creative fuel and absolute artistic freedom. But the ledger of destiny always collects its debts, and his final receipt arrived in the form of a definitive, catastrophic diagnosis: HIV/AIDS, an absolute death sentence signed through reckless pleasure. Within a matter of months, his immune cell counts cratered to zero, turning his vibrant physical form into a theater of raw agony. The tragedy multiplied exponentially during the brief 24 months he shared a home with his partner, John, as the silent predator consumed both of their lives simultaneously. André was forced to watch his own muscular frame begin wasting away, skin tightening over bones, while helplessly witnessing John succumb to the excruciating torture of meningitis, a merciless foe that stripped away their remaining dignity on sterile hospital beds. His success gave him immortal theater credits, but his mathematical pursuit of ecstasy left him trapped in a body broken by the century's plague, counting down his remaining, labored breaths in absolute isolation. A crisp bank draft is slid across a polished oak desk to settle an outstanding balance, but the currency required to balance this specific account cannot be drawn from a vault of gold. Trammell Tillman. Mode I, the ripple of one choice. It takes only a single quiet choice to set a tragic destiny in motion. A single step into the dark corridors of a dormitory that changes a life forever. Long before he earned a Primetime Emmy Awards honor and stood as a celebrated powerhouse on the red carpet, Trammell Tillman was a young student navigating the strict, unyielding grounds of Xavier University of Louisiana. In that highly conservative academic environment, he made the fateful decision to engage in a series of secret, same-sex relationships, seeking a temporary emotional escape from a world that demanded absolute perfection. But in a community built on rigid judgment, that choice quickly morphed into a merciless foe. Every hidden encounter became a toxic double life, a constant battle against the terrifying fear of discovery and public disgrace. The systemic blade of his environment cut deep into his psyche. He longed to live honestly, yet he felt a crushing shame because his true identity clashed violently with the picture-perfect expectations of his school and family. The invisible walls of prejudice became so suffocating that he was ultimately forced to abandon his education at Xavier entirely, fleeing the campus in a desperate search for peace. He eventually gathered the shattered pieces of his youth to conquer Hollywood, but that single, early choice to hide in the shadows left an unfillable void. When he finally held the Golden Emmy statue in his hands, it was not just a symbol of fame. It was a monument to the painful sacrifices of a man who had to trade the peace of his youth just to survive the system. The smooth, porcelain sink in an empty dormitory bathroom catches a stream of cold water, washing away the sweat of a panicked midnight escape before the morning bell calls a broken student back to a life of flawless acting. Daryl Stevens. Mode J, the social media illusion. Slip past the picture-perfect grid of an actor who redefined modern Black queer representation, and you will find a reality that no digital filter could ever sanitize. On the screen, Daryl Stevens was the epitome of effortless grace and intellectual charm, a celebrated voice portraying complex stories about class and identity. But behind that pristine public aesthetic lay a dark, unfiltered world of emotional emptiness and chaotic choices. For years, he was deeply submerged in the volatile currents of the gay nightlife scene, dragging his soul through a relentless cycle of wild parties and short-lived, anonymous encounters with men. This frantic chase for connection quickly morphed into a toxic routine. The constant repetition of fleeting relationships left his emotions completely numb, transforming his search for fulfillment into a hollow, exhausting performance. He was an icon trapped in an unfillable void, a man drowning in a sea of superficial validation. In the midst of this intense psychological crisis, Daryl attempted a drastic, desperate change of direction to escape his isolation. He began exploring relationships with women, a calculated search for stability that eventually made him the single father of a daughter. Today, he presents himself as a devoted, grounded parent, but the transition was born out of raw agony and profound confusion. The public continues to scroll through his polished image, entirely unaware that his journey toward fatherhood was a desperate, last-ditch effort to reconstruct a shattered self after spending years completely lost in the dark. The clinical results on a white medical chart do not care about the artistic depth of a ballad, transforming a pristine vocal legacy into a series of cold, unyielding numbers that signal a physical surrender. Jeffrey Bowyer Chapman. Mode A, the forensic. Examine the immaculate stitching of a designer suit worn by Jeffrey Bowyer Chapman on a Canadian red carpet. A flawless garment framing a striking model and actor who exudes pure elegance and absolute composure. That fabric is an expensive shield, but if you trace the sharp contours of his jawline under the flashing lights, you will find the hidden tension of a man navigating a predatory system. Choosing to openly identify as gay placed him on a path of absolute authenticity, but it simultaneously exposed him to the unspoken, predatory rules of the entertainment industry. Behind the dazzling stage lights and public praise, his personal journey became a toxic double life. Private casting sessions and exclusive gatherings slowly drew him into a dangerous labyrinth where personal boundaries were completely blurred by wealthy gatekeepers. He was a powerhouse forced to treat his own body as a form of currency, a pawn in a high-stakes game where major career opportunities were tied to private, physical compromises. The systemic blade of Hollywood left an unfillable void in his soul as he chattered through years of hidden hardships. He walked away with fame and recognition, but every polished photograph of him remains a chilling testament to a man who had to trade pieces of his own dignity just to secure a seat at the table of the elite. The heavy glass door of a penthouse suite clicks locked, sealing out the roaring noise of the city while trapping a young star in an environment where the price of admission is written in flesh. Nico Annan. Mode B, the reverse tragedy. The global audience of 2024 stood up to applaud a monumental breakthrough, cheering for a versatile powerhouse whose commanding presence as an actor, dancer, and choreographer finally conquered the peak of Hollywood's elite. Yet, if you rewind the tape of his destiny to the grueling early chapters of his career, the celebratory cheers fade into a suffocating, hostile silence. Choosing to openly embrace his identity as a gay man from the very beginning allowed Nico Annan to live authentically, but within a system weaponized by long-standing prejudice, that honesty was treated as a severe disadvantage. As a black artist trying to navigate the invisible walls of an unforgiving industry, he quickly discovered that raw talent alone was never enough to secure survival. Behind the polished choreography and graceful movements on the dance floors lay a dark, transactional reality where major opportunities remained just beyond reach, while crucial doors repeatedly closed in his face. To force his way upward, he was subjected to the systemic blade of extreme power dynamics, facing unspoken pressures to make painful, intimate compromises inside closed rooms to advance his career. It was a toxic double life that tested the very boundaries of his self-worth. A slow erosion where the line between professional ambition and personal devastation became dangerously thin. He ultimately weaponized that raw agony to forge an indomitable screen presence, but his triumph stands as a chilling reminder of the heavy, invisible toll the industry extracts from black queer bodies before granting them the right to shine. The intricate stage setup is torn down by a crew of nameless workers, leaving behind nothing but the cold, skeletal structure of a platform that once lifted an icon into the light. Dylan Burnside. Mode C, the immersive witness. I remember sitting in the dim, amber glow of a crowded theater lounge, watching Dylan Burnside step away from the roaring applause of his fans. On screen and stage, he was a mesmerizing powerhouse, radiating absolute confidence, charisma, and a profound emotional depth that captivated millions. But as you watched him move through the glamorous Hollywood crowds, you could catch a fleeting glimpse of a man locked in a silent, exhausting battle with himself. Choosing to openly identify as a gay man early in his career required immense, undeniable courage within an industry that actively uses prejudice to crush those who dare to be different. Yet, for Dylan, coming out was merely the first step into a complicated labyrinth of self-discovery. Over the years, he entered a fluid emotional space, experiencing deep and intense relationships with both men and women, not as an act of public rebellion, but as a desperate, internal search to understand his true emotions. From the shadows, you could see the heavy toll of the industry's invisible walls. Every choice he made was immediately met with strict societal judgment, pushing him into moments of intense uncertainty and deep inner conflict. There were times he openly questioned whether he was moving toward genuine clarity or simply becoming completely lost among the rigid labels expected by the public. He ultimately used his art to face those chaotic experiences directly, but the beautiful vulnerability he displays on screen was forged in the raw agony of a man who had to walk through a lonely, uncertain path just to find a sense of peace within his own skin. The glittering costume is packed away into a heavy trunks, its metallic sequins catching the final, dying ray of light before the backstage door locks a tired performer out into the cold reality of an ordinary night. Ryan Jamal Swain. Mode D, the systemic critique. Look at the fluid, breathtaking movements of a dancer on stage, and you will see an artist transforming raw agony into a magnificent form of liberation. But the systemic blade of Hollywood rarely allows a queer black man to heal without first extracting a painful, calculated tax. For Ryan Jamal Swain, the journey to international fame was shaped by an unfillable void that began long before he ever stepped into the spotlight. He was raised within a family structure where his true identity was met with harsh rejection, hurtful words, and emotional pressure that left deep, permanent marks on his psyche. When he escaped that domestic prison to enter the entertainment industry, he carried those open emotional wounds with him, desperately searching for comfort and connection. He plunged into several intense relationships with other men, navigating a toxic double life where he tried to use physical closeness as a shield against the haunting memories of his childhood. But the industry did not offer sanctuary. It merely acted as a larger, more critical cage. He quickly realized that no fleeting relationship could erase the trauma of being abandoned by his own blood unless he confronted the monster himself. He ultimately chose to gather his anger and pain, channeling them into raw, haunting performances that left audiences breathless. But his success remains a bitter reminder of an industry that demands its stars to be broken by society before they are allowed to be worshipped on screen. The final echo of a thumping bassline fades into the concrete walls of an empty rehearsal studio, leaving a solitary figure standing under a single, flickering light that exposes the deep exhaustion of a body that has danced through hell. Milan Christopher. Mode E, the paradox of peaks. In the mid-2010s, Milan Christopher was standing at the absolute zenith of reality television fame, exploding onto screens as a breakout powerhouse on Love and Hip-Hop Hollywood. He was a cultural milestone, celebrated globally as part of one of the very first openly gay male couples in hip-hop history, a dazzling pioneer basking in the forgiving spotlight of a seemingly progressive era. Yet, this spectacular peak was the exact catalyst for a sudden drop into raw agony. The moment he broke through the invisible walls of the industry, the picture-perfect illusion shattered under a relentless barrage of public scrutiny and toxic tabloid fodder that turned his private life into a battleground. Behind the confident, flashy rapper persona lay a mind suffocating under fame's crushing pressure. As he navigated successive, highly publicized relationships, his inner world became a chaotic labyrinth of self-doubt. The true psychological crisis arrived when his intense romance with transgender model Lauren England forced him to reflect on his deepest emotions, pushing him to abandon his public label and openly identify as bisexual. While the media parsed his sexuality for clicks, Milan was dealing with the crushing loneliness of a man realizing his identity had been commodified by a predatory system. His journey became an inspiring testament to personal growth and courage, but the price for his historical television peak was an unfillable void, a bitter reminder that in Hollywood, being a trailblazer means letting the public dissect your soul for their entertainment. The studio microphone goes dead, leaving a heavy, suffocating silence in a room where a man's rawest emotional confessions have just been converted into a lucrative broadcast package for a faceless audience. Wilson Cruz. Mode F, the inanimate observer. If the worn-out vinyl suitcase that a teenage Wilson Cruz dragged onto the cold streets of Los Angeles could speak, it would recount a horror story that began long before he ever found sanctuary under the forgiving spotlight of Hollywood. That battered piece of luggage was not packed for a glamorous vacation. It was hastily filled with the scattered pieces of a life shattered by an earth-shattering secret. The moment a young Wilson Cruz openly identified as gay, the picture-perfect illusion of family warmth dissolved into absolute, raw agony. The suitcase witnessed the ultimate scandalous betrayal as his own father, the one person who should have stood as an unshakable shield, completely disowned and cast him out into the night. For months, the cold concrete of the city streets became his home, pushing him into a desperate struggle against a silent predator of crushing loneliness and total uncertainty. To survive the traumatic aftermath of this family rejection, he sought comfort and a sense of belonging through short-lived relationships and brief, anonymous encounters with men. He was a powerhouse talent navigating an unfillable void, dragging his soul through the dark currents of the night scene to dull the pain of a bleeding heart. Although he eventually forged those deep psychological scars into an iconic acting career, transforming his past trauma into a fierce weapon for LGBTQ+ advocacy, the invisible walls of that early abandonment never truly vanished. He conquered the industry, but every roaring standing ovation he receives is a bittersweet echo for a man who had to lose his entire family just to find himself. The ignition of an old, modified engine roars to life in a dark garage, its rhythmic, mechanical vibrations rattling the window panes of an apartment where a musical revolution is being plotted under the shadow of a terminal diagnosis. Easy. Mode B, the reverse tragedy. In late March 1995, a suffocating silence fell over the global music industry as a cold medical announcement from a Los Angeles hospital room confirmed that the heart of the godfather of gangster rap had stopped beating forever. Eazy-E was dead at the young age of 30, utterly wasted away by the century's plague. Yet, if you rewind the tape of destiny by just a few years, you are thrust back into a rhapsodic era of absolute rebellious power. As the driving powerhouse behind NWA, Eric Wright stood at the absolute zenith of cultural influence, weaponizing bold, unyielding music to tear down the invisible walls of societal oppression. He was a symbol of raw, untouchable masculinity, living a double life wrapped in an extreme illusion of freedom and excessive pleasure. The public watched him build a sprawling legacy, fathering 11 children with 8 different women in a chaotic routine of untamed hedonism. But the ledger of destiny always collects its debts, and his final receipt arrived as a sudden drop into absolute horror when a persistent cough turned out to be a definitive diagnosis of HIV/AIDS. The silent predator had been tracking him through years of high-risk choices, and within a matter of weeks, the virus orchestrated a brutal massacre on his vibrant physical form. He was left gasping for air on a sterile hospital bed, his robust frame melting away into a skeletal state under the onslaught of a merciless foe. In a final, monumental act of courage that stunned his global fanbase, Eazy-E chose to strip away the gangster mask entirely, publicly revealing his terminal diagnosis to shatter the intense fear and stigma surrounding the illness before his labored breathing ceased entirely. Fame gave him an immortal crown, but his untamed lifestyle turned his brilliant peak into a devastating cautionary tale about the irreversible consequences of a life lived completely out of control. The final credit scroll rolls up a black screen in absolute silence, a cold, definitive end that leaves an empty theater staring at the heavy, velvet curtains where the dazzling illusion of immortal fame has just been permanently buried. These 17 life stories reveal a chilling glimpse behind the glamorous velvet curtain of Hollywood, a system designed to create an absolutely perfect image while silently raking in a ruthless, meticulously calculated fee. They are a powerful, haunting reminder that behind every immortal icon lies a fragile human being silently battling their own choices, struggles, and regrets. Which story has changed your perspective on Hollywood the most? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we continue to expose the unseen dark side of the entertainment world. See you next time. Let's continue to see through the illusions.